Welcome to KR Films Entertainment Channel. Today I am going to explain a 1995 Hollywood adventure action movie called Cutthroat Island. A young lady in 1668 has just spent the night with an English Navy lieutenant, who then tries to have her arrested for the crime of piracy. Knowing all along who she was and just wanting to have a good night. Thankfully, though, the born and raised pirate Morgan Adams and her monkey king Charles have taken his balls. Morgan is found by her father's henchmen and called back to him in an emergency. Knocking a sailor out and taking his boat to reach her uncle's ship, the Reaper, Morgan's uncle and fellow pirate Dog Brown wants her father Black Harry's treasure map and has held a mutiny to get it. So Harry has strapped an anchor to his peg leg and is threatening to send himself to Davy Jones' locker to keep the information a secret as he points to his head when asked of its location. Morgan arrives just as Harry makes the decision to throw himself into the sea, managing to catch her father. Harry is shot in the chest and mortally wounded, so his persistent daughter dives underwater to avoid gunfire and just manages to cut the anchor free. She swims ashore with the dying Harry, who reveals to her the location of the map, having had it tattooed on his scalp for protection. Meanwhile, in the Jamaican town of Port Royal, a fancy ball is taking place where Mr. Trotter is discussing a wealthy lady to Governor Ainsley. But the doctor-turned-thief William Shaw begins sweet-talking her during a dance while stealing her diamond comb. Shaw tries to smoothly slip away, but things turn sour when Trotter holds him up, wondering what ship he arrived in town on just long enough for the lady to realize his ploy. He attempts to make a daring escape but gets surrounded by guards and is quickly arrested, before being ordered to be sold as a slave by the governor. Back on the Morning Star, Harry has given his daughter captaincy of his ship, but she drinks her sorrows away below deck with a chronicler John Reed, who often spends his days following pirates to write his books. Glasspool warns Morgan that some of the ship's crew are reluctant to follow a female captain, and they begin arguing over who should lead, so Morgan produces a map having scalped her dead father for it and tells them that it is one of 3 pieces leading to her grandfather's stash of gold on the remote Cutthroat Island, but the map was divided among her grandfather's 3 children, and her father's brother and killer dog has the second, while yet to be seen brother Mordecai has the third. Unfortunately, the instructions on the map appear to be in Latin, which no one on board reads, not even Reed, so they make plans to go to the nearby Port Royal to find a translator with full support of the quartermaster Mr. Blair. Morgan disguises herself as an affluent lady looking to purchase a slave and learns that one up for auction is fluent in Latin. They meet Shaw, who proves to them that he can speak the language, but she has competition in his purchase from a man determined to buy Shaw simply to torture him. During an auction where the slaves are hung if not sold, Morgan and Glasspool threaten the rival bidder, winning the auction for the bargain price of £30. Unfortunately, she is recognized from her wanted poster and is converged on by guards before she can get the translator out of Port Royal. She takes Shaw with the intention of meeting the rest of her crew at her ship, and the two begin to fight their way out. The locals help revolt against their oppressors while Governor Ainsley watches on. Shaw begins to suspect that Morgan isn't wanting his knowledge of Latin just to educate her children, and the two commandeer a coach to escape the city. Any guards that manage to climb onto the carriage are quickly dispensed of by Morgan, while Shaw tries to keep them from crashing. After destroying half the city in their escape already, the English begin firing cannonballs from their ships and destroying the other half while missing the pirate with every single one. Humiliated at his failure, the governor doubles the bounty on Morgan's head to £200 and tells Trotter that he will be made captain if he tracks her down. So Trotter enlists the help of John Reed, who had been visiting bookshops, to track down the pirates. While Ainsley panders to him as a fellow literary man, he tells the pirate's friend that he can either arrest and hang her when he catches her or form a partnership for half of her profits, leaving it to Reed to decide. While threatening Shaw to read the Latin with a knife to his crotch, Morgan realizes that the instructions were not Latin, but they were simply written backwards, but they still only say the name of Bible verses. The crew sail to Spitalfield Harbor to retrieve the third piece of the map from Morgan's uncle Mordecai. When she is told by cabin boy Bowen that he is well guarded due to Uncle Dog wanting the map also, so once again Morgan dons a disguise and dresses like a local skank to sneak inside. After being thoroughly checked by one of the guards for a weapon, Morgan confronts Mordecai and produces a massive pistol, easily discovered if the guard had done his job. But she pulls out his brother's scalp, convincing her uncle to join their ships against Dog and find his father's treasure together. But before she can learn where the second piece of the map is, Morgan is pulled from a balcony by a pirate with a chain for a hand, having been followed by Dog and his men. Dog tries to get the location of the map out of her with a giant eel, while Shaw, with the help of Bowen, uses some gunpowder and a candle to cause a distraction. A fight breaks out between the whole bar, during which Dog has his brother held at knife point asking for the map. but is bumped and accidentally stabs Mordecai in the stomach. Bleeding out, the dying brother is noticed by Shaw as he crawls over to his map piece, having been hidden in plain sight in a barrel the whole time, so the thief secretly keeps it to himself but is seen by Morgan, who is shot by her uncle in the stomach on her way out. They escape to the arrival of Blair and the rest of the Morning Star crew, destroying the Spitalfield buildings for cover. While fleeing back to her ship, Morgan figures that the Bible verses written on the map are actually the longitude coordinates of Cutthroat Island. Dog also survives the explosions and chases after Morgan, but instead of getting more food for the journey, he just lessens the stomachs that need filling. With the new information, Morgan discovers the location of Cutthroat Island, and tells her crew that they are going to lure Dog into a shallow reef to kill him for his piece of the map. But just then Morgan collapses, finally succumbing to her wound. Before the uneducated crew take a hot iron to the wound, Shaw, who is after all a doctor, performs some Mr. Miyagi. He operates on Morgan and removes the bullet, before the captain begins flirting with him to get him to reveal Mordecai's piece of the map, and they kiss. But Shaw still pretends that he doesn't have the second piece. So with Dog bearing down on the Morning Star in the Reaper, Morgan directs the crew into a storm to reach the coral reef. Shaw sneaks into the captain's cabin with the second piece of the map in hand, using Black Harry's scalp to discover the location of the island. Realizing that the uppercase letters on the map are actually Roman numerals, he pieces together the longitude and latitude to find the location of Cutthroat Island, which turns out is so far uncharted. Morgan catches him having used her piece of 3 as bait to find the islands and forces him to reveal his true identity. Shaw, it turns out, is just a poor thief and conman who has never been a doctor, so Blair ends up throwing him in the brig for his lies. During the storm, Reed sneaks into the captain's quarters and takes note of the island's location, sending a carrier pigeon to Ainsley relaying the information. With Blair and her father's closest crew completely on Morgan's side, the majority are being led by the treacherous Scully and hold a mutiny. With the knowledge of the island's location and the map pieces in hand, Scully maroons Morgan and those loyal to her by dumping them into a small boat in the middle of the storm. Shaw manages to slip his restraints and escapes the ship by jumping off the side towards Morgan, but is unable to reach them as he goes unseen or heard by them. Before the crew can reach land, the boat is wrecked in the storm against the side of a rock, but luckily the morning tide takes them directly to Cutthroat Island. As Morgan and her crew find their bearings and go after the treasure with the parts of the map they already know, they see both the Morning Star and the Reaper arriving at the island. With Dog having the third piece and teaming up with Scully and the mutinous traitors, Morgan plans to steal the map piece during the cover of darkness and kill her uncle in the process. But by the time she gets there, the master thief Shaw has already stolen it, having survived the storm, and flees into the jungle as Dog and his men chase after him throughout the night. When Morgan catches up to Shaw, he has unfortunately fallen into quicksand, requiring him to surrender the map to Morgan in order to be saved, though she still has to think about it for a little bit before deciding to help the lying betrayer. Together with all 3 pieces, they find the location of the gold, but coming up to a cliff with more pieces still being required, they discover that they must be taken down the side of the cliff. The two find a cave and begin to explore while Blair, Glasspool and Bowen hear another crew come in and try lead them away. Morgan and Shaw make it to the end of the cave and find a massive load of treasure creating its own island in the middle of a pool of water, Morgan's grandfather's entire wealth hoarded together for his children. With Shaw tasked with hauling the chests of gold and gems out of the cave, Morgan climbs back up to find no sign of her crew but old Chain Hand sitting in a tree and finally gets captured by Dog. Finding Shaw dangling from the side of the cliff with a chest of treasure tied to a rope, Dog throws Morgan off the edge, making Shaw catch her. With the two now equal share partners trapped on the side of the cliff, the pirates begin to pull them up with the treasure, forcing them to jump off into an incoming tide just before they hit the rocks below, allowing Dog and his crew to claim the gold and load it on their ship. Reed finds Shaw washed up on the rocks and brings him back to consciousness, claiming to have been sent by Morgan. He leads him into a trap set by Dog and Ainsley, having joined forces and intending to split the treasure of Cutthroat Island between them all. Shaw manages to get one good lick in on Reed before they take him prisoner and begin to make preparations to depart the island. Just as Morgan, having survived the fall, comes across the large British force splitting up among the pirates' ships, Ainsley is planning on making Dog a privateer in the service of the British Empire, sounding much better to him than pirate. Meanwhile, Dog has other aspirations, one becoming governor of Jamaica, and is entertaining Ainsley aboard the Reaper simply to learn his pompous ways. They all make their way out to sea on board the Morning Star with Scully and the imprisoned crew, along with Morgan, who sneaks aboard before they leave. She manages to kill the guards and free her crew, before quickly retaking it from Scully and throwing the mutineers overboard. The crew then tries to sneak attack the Reaper, but Dog predicts something is wrong, and attempts to hang Shaw to test the crew. Before Morgan can shoot the hangman, Blair does, and a sea fight ensues where the two ships batter each other's hulls to pieces with close-range attacks. Eventually Reed is blown to pieces by some cannon fire as well as Ainsley and a heap of his men. Shaw escapes, but the two parties begin to engage in hand-to-hand combat, with Morgan and her crew boarding the Reaper in an attempt to kill her uncle, who is currently having the time of his life while Trotter is being knocked out by Morgan as he just stands around. During the chaos, Morgan sneaks below deck of the Reaper and blows out the ship's bottom, allowing her crew to cut themselves free and let the enemy ship sink. Blair kills Dog's quartermaster before getting saved by Trotter, having never liked the Navy and always taking crap the entire movie. Shaw discovers the treasure hold but is trapped in the sinking ship when he is found by Morgan, where she is finally confronted by Dog as the two throw down. They begin a long duel while Glasspool has a very quick one with Snailgrave, as the Cutthroat gets it caught on the anchor and is sent down to Davy Jones' locker. Shaw still trapped on board the Reaper while Morgan's now victorious crew watches on as their captain begins to lose to her uncle, but luckily a disarmed Morgan survives a fall from the mast down to the middle deck, greeting her uncle when he makes it down with a loaded cannon, rag-dolling Dog through the back of his own ship. She is forced to breathe for Shaw until together they are able to get him free but are forced to abandon the treasure to escape the ship just before it explodes. Luckily Morgan attached a marker barrel to the treasure beforehand, allowing them to retrieve the massive haul. After they decide on what their next adventure's gonna be, Blair wants to retire to a farm. Trotter joins the pirates to travel to Madagascar with them, and Morgan and Shaw go below deck and the movie ends. Thanks for watching.